Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Power Hour podcast. I am Jordan, as always. That is my friend Luke, and this is the first edition of your NXT Weekly Power Hour. We're doing these as well as AEW Weekly Power Hours, and you will also get reactions to pay-per-views and things like that. So please, if you're in for some weird opinions and discussions around wrestling, then subscribe to this channel, because
definitely in the right place.
Yeah, we go deep. We go deep in conspiracy theories and hypothetical situations.
Oh yeah, we like to play devil's advocate.
But who doesn't love that stuff about wrestling? Half of the fun being a fan of wrestling is fantasy booking. And I'm sure that at some point in this episode, we're going to talk about what may be in the future of NXT. But right now, let's talk about what happened on the latest episode of NXT this week. So, Luke, let's go through it. What was our first match?
So we were supposed to get Kushida versus Roderick Strong, which is a match I'm very much looking forward to, because that is going to tear the house down when it eventually happens. But Kushida has an injury, apparently. So we instead got got Roderick Strong versus Dragunov.
Yeah.
Who, boy, was this a good match to start with.
Yes.
Hard hitting. It was an absolute banger. I love this match. I thought it was awesome.
I love this match, but I got a couple of things to say about Dragunov. He needs more of a character in my mind. Something about him just isn't clicking with me right now. I love him in the ring. I think he's great in the ring, but there's nothing character-wise to hold on to, and that's kind of the problem for me.
Do you watch NXT UK?
I do, but not as regularly.
Right, okay. I don't at all. So that might be part of the problem. There might actually be character there, but because we're only seeing this little bit. And it's not as well presented as when it was like, Dunne or.
Can I just mention, I like how your dog is looking very sinister in the back.
Yeah, he's feeling sorry for himself, because it's one, nearly time to be food, and two, not be food, be fed. And two, I just took the missus to work, and he's been following me around. Normally, my missus is the favorite, but he's been following me around. I took him up my nan's to meet her new dog, and ever since then, he's just been following me around nonstop. So I'm the favorite currently. So that's what that is. And he's just waited for me to.
He's probably trying to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, who the hell are you talking to? But that's nothing new. Normally it's just me.
Maybe when you're a wrestler one day, Luke, we'll get you coming out with a dog.
I'll do the wrestling commentary. I don't mind that. That'd be cool. I don't want to put myself through.
So how did you feel about this match overall?
I really liked it. I'm a big fan of Roddy Strong. I think he's severely underutilized, and part of that is because they fired most of the bloody Diamond Mine before they even got going.
So for some background, I actually tuned out of NXT for a little while. I was still watching the takeovers, but I wasn't watching the weekly show for a little while.
Sure.
I don't understand what this Diamond Mine situation is. So can you please enlighten me?
I can't. I honestly can't, because it got cut off at the legs. Like Marina Shafir was meant to be in it. It was meant to be like a hard hitting, kind of like MMA based, or MMA adjacent.
I mean, if that was the plan for this stable, it makes sense Roddy being there.
Like Shafir made sense.
But whatever it is right now, I was just kind of like,
literally at the minute, it just seems like Roddy doesn't talk.
Yeah,
which is working, because he looks the part. He looks intimidating.
Yeah.
Bivens or Belvins, or whatever the fuck you say his name, he does all the talking, and then the other guy that's with him, whose name I'm forgetting, is supposedly his coach, I guess.
Yeah, because there was a part later on in the episode where I forget the backstage interviewer's name, but she went up to Roddy to ask him a question, and the other guy was like, "You don't talk to him." You talk
Yes.
to me.
Yeah.
I did
Which
appreciate that as
I
a
really
character bit.
I really like, because Roddy can talk,
Yeah,
but his
strength is the in-ring, right?
it's not even that it's a weakness. It's just that they don't quite match up with the character they're going for at the
Yeah.
moment. Like when he
Yeah.
talks, he's cocky, he's arrogant, and that sort of thing. Here, he fights like a badass, and he is just meant to be a badass. So having Bivens being the talker and having a coach behind him, I fully expect that he's going to become the cruiserweight champion, whatever that match
Okay,
is.
interesting.
I fully expect that that's going to happen, and then they move Kushida up to whatever.
There is someone I think will be on NXT soon. Just you mentioning the cruiserweights made me think of this. I don't know why. But I was actually watching Raw this week for the first time in a few weeks. I always keep up with Raw, but
Sure.
I just felt like with it being SummerSlam on the weekend, I thought, watch Raw just to see what's going on.
It's meant to be terrible, wasn't it?
And it wasn't great, but Jesus Christ, Reginald, the 24/7 champion.
Yeah,
That guy's got some skills.
Yeah, I reckon he should be NXT bound. But Vince really likes him. Vince thinks he's hilarious. So
yeah,
he won't.
He's got the chemistry. He's got the acrobatics.
I would love to see him actually, because slight tangent. One of my favorite things about wrestling is how it does feel a little bit like Tekken, or like one of the old school fighting games, where each wrestler is a different, not necessarily a different skill set, but
the character makes them different, right?
The character's different, and there are loads of different fighting styles.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's something that's really cool to me when you see a giant going off against, someone like Roddy Strong, who is just going to kick the shit out of you.
For sure.
I love that stuff.
But yeah, no, that was just a little tangent because you brought up the cruiserweight belt, and I feel like Reginald would be a very good cruiserweight champion at some point.
Potentially. We haven't seen how he actually is as a wrestler, though.
That's true.
We've seen him like flip around in that, but we haven't actually.
But maybe NXT would be a good place for him to develop those skills.
Maybe. But Dragunov ended up beating Roddy Strong, and like something I really appreciated in this match is the way that Roddy knew certain things that Dragunov was going to do, despite Dragunov. Yeah, it was an open challenge. Dragunov just came out and answered the challenge.
Yeah,
and like he's just clearly studied people, and I love it when they do that in a match. I love it when wrestlers are smart and they see something a guy does every match and they can counter.
Do you know what I love? The fact that when a match feels like both of these guys know what to do, like 7 moves ahead, where it's like they, because wrestling is hard. Let's be real. They have a lot to remember. There's a lot that can go wrong, but when it's so smooth that it makes it feel more real because of how smooth it is, and that's kind of how this match felt. Nothing, to my eye, on first watch, nothing really went wrong.
No.
And they just seemed to be in a really good flow, and I think
like. There were a couple of spots that really stick out to me is when Dragunov's he does like a 619 into like a spinning clothesline.
Yes.
And Roddy like just drop kicks him while he's on the ropes. And then when he tries to go for the I forget what his finisher's called, but the Russian whatever.
Oh yeah.
And Roddy just like knees him in the face and catches him. Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it when people.
Was there something that happened after this match?
Yes. So we got the I think it was the Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly hype stuff.
Oh yeah. I quite enjoyed this recap. To be fair, it was done well.
Very good. It makes it already feels like a big fight because it's Adam Cole, and all of his fights feel like big fights. Yeah. But that hype package did an incredible job.
Yeah.
So
it's not often I'll talk about hype packages, but this one was a good one.
Yeah, I mean WWE tend to be good. Like if you don't watch any of their weekly shows and then go into a pay-per-view,
you can catch up pretty easy, right?
Yeah, they tell you everything and they do it in such a concise and entertaining way. They're wonderful.
For sure.
And then we got Row coming down.
I enjoyed this. What happened here?
I love Scott. I think Swerve is fantastic. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Wow, it depends what they're actually doing with NXT, but I'd love to see him take a step up again. I honestly think he could be fantastic, but he hasn't defended the title properly yet. So
I mean, I don't understand why this angle was over basically a mouthpiece.
so they're both disrespecting each other's cultures, essentially.
Okay.
So in the same way that last week, Swerve.
Oh yes,
they burned his mask.
That
was in retaliation.
Do you know what though? One thing that stuck out in my brain after kind of watching this angle was what they're doing with Phantasma is basically what they did with Andrade. Or do you know what I mean? And it's like you already had that and we've seen it. So in my head, I was sort of like, why are you doing it again?
I think the difference here is that Escobar is ahead of where Andrade was.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the ring, but definitely on the microphone.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely on the microphone. It is for sure similar, but I think it is also because they've got high expectations of what Escobar can do.
Yeah.
What he's going to go on to do. Because they told an
interesting and also he is the type of character they need on the roster, right? Like right now, the character role he's playing in NXT isn't really something they have on the main roster. So it is a good thing. I was just, like I said, just in my head, because we watch a lot of AEW and because we've got Andrade over there now, it did make me think this is basically Andrade.
Kind of, but they've been doing this before. Andrade got over there, so
yeah, true, very true.
Yeah, it does have its differences, but it is he's got Mexican.
But what I enjoyed about this angle is it was very predictable, and yet it wasn't like, oh my god, I knew that was going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was predictable, but they knew it was going to happen as well. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be dumb and go get him backstage and get ambushed. It's like, well, no, they
it wasn't a dumb thing, right? Like he knew the two were behind him. He threw the jacket, like
and then like the other guys came out, like it was good.
And some of that looked horrible as well. Like when he was smashing him again.
Yeah, bro, when he just picked him up and man. I fully expect that Hit Row are going to get tag titles at some point.
Yeah.
I fully expect they will because they're fantastic.
For sure. So following this, what did we get?
We had Cameron Grimes.
Yes.
Josh Briggs.
I really enjoyed this.
I liked the angle more than the match.
So I didn't enjoy the match necessarily, but I think the match was playing a part in the bigger storyline.
Yeah. The match didn't really matter too much. It was more what was going on around the match
because we had
DBLC.
Yeah, because we obviously had $1 Million Man on commentary as well as LA Knight, who I love. I think he is I
do as well. He's fantastic.
I think he's weird because he feels like he's in this place where if they wanted to, he could have been main roster straight away. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's one trick that maybe WWE miss these days because of NXT, where they don't necessarily go main roster straight away as often as they used to.
Sure. Maybe. I mean, a lot of it is down to the wrestlers as well, because we've seen a lot of NXT guys that have no interest in going to the main roster, like Ciampa,
that's true.
And stuff like that. There might be another case like that.
But I enjoy this angle because I think it's good for LA Knight's character. I still hate that name personally, but
I don't mind it. I've got past it. Every now and again I'm just like, what does the LA stand for?
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Or is it just La Knight? Maybe Latino. No, but like I said, I like the back and I think Ted DiBiase is a bit rusty, but I think the back and forth between him and
put it this way: with this angle and with what happened on this episode of NXT, I am actually now really looking forward to this match.
I'm pretty sure Grimes is going to win, but I think it would also be cool if he didn't.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Knight kept the title, and then DiBiase had to be his butler.
Yeah.
Because I
sure.
honestly think I like DiBiase enough that I would like him to stick around, but I think he is a bit rusty.
Yeah, but that can be worked off, right? That can be worked off. And DiBiase does. Do you know what I actually wondered if it was going to happen? And I don't know if it would happen yet or later in the story, but I wonder if at some point DiBiase is actually going to screw Cameron Grimes and align with LA Knight.
Maybe,
because to me, those two characters feel like they fit together.
I mean, they already did. That was the thing. Like DiBiase brought him in, and then DiBiase kicked the shit out of him.
Yeah, true.
I wonder more if we might eventually see LA Knight and Cameron Grimes as a tag team.
Okay, interesting.
Because I think they'd be an interesting kind of.
There's an interesting dynamic there because they're not too similar. They've got very different styles.
No, they're similar in that they're both rich. That's the thing, but they're rich in different ways. So I think that could be an interesting mix. You've got like LA Knight's kind of money, and then you've got cowboy Cameron Grimes doing his thing. I think it could be a fun, interesting mix. I don't think that's where they're going to go, but it could be a cool thing.
It'd be interesting to see for sure. This is the thing. I think this episode did a very good job of being kind of the, I forget what the term is, what they use. They use a term for the episode before a pay-per-view, and it's escaping me right now. There you go. I think it did a very good job as the go home episode for the pay-per-view because I think actually if somebody hadn't watched NXT for weeks and weeks, they could watch this episode and figure out very quickly what was going on.
I agree.
They could figure out who's in a feud with who and why they're in a feud. So I think they did a really good job. So moving on from Cameron Grimes and LA Knight, what else did we have following this?
So we had a match that got me thinking that we need some new titles. We had a mixed tag team match with.
I was thinking this exact same thing.
In Dex versus Robert Stone and Jessica.
I really enjoyed this match.
I really think, before we actually get into that, I really think they should bin off the women's tag team titles in NXT because they haven't got their roster smaller. They don't have any women's tag teams that I could name you off. Like Shotzi and Ember have broken up because Shotzi's on the main roster now, stuff like that. I really think they should get rid of that and do the mixed tag stuff because you've got Gargano, you've got the Garganos.
The thing about women's tag titles is what they should have done is they should have just had one set of women's tag titles for the whole WWE. And then it would have worked. Have them be between all three brands. Have it be. Do you know what I mean? WWE honestly, make this mistake so often of having too many belts that each belt then means less. And they don't actually have enough people to use those belts properly.
I mean, I'm sure we'll cover it at some point if we ever do another like fantasy booking thing. But I honestly think Raw and SmackDown should now just be one roster with how many people they're cutting.
Jesus, yeah.
And the lack of strength in the women's division, lack of strength in the women's tag division. And then NXT should have theirs. But the champions could float and someone on the main roster could win off of.
Well, I mean, that's what they used to do back in the day. That's what they used to do back in the day. So I don't see why they wouldn't go back to that.
Yeah. But I mean, so like that would mean like the women's tag titles could float down and then the mixed tag could float around and stuff like that. I think they could do interesting stuff with that. However, this match, as much as I did enjoy it, I've seen how good Robert Stone is at wrestling, and I think it's such a waste of what he does. I think he's hilarious.
Let's be very clear for people who don't know him. He had a very good run in TNA a little while ago.
He did. He was
and when I say a very good run, I mean a very good run.
Yeah. He started out as a really annoying Jersey Shore sort of character.
The way I would describe him is he was almost like TNA's version of The Miz.
No, he was TNA's version of Zack Ryder.
Yeah, okay.
But he actually got pushed a bit more. He was actually Yeah, he wasn't the one taking the beating in high-end angles. He was the heel, and he did it really well, and he was
True.
obnoxious.
But what I did love about this match is almost because I know how good he is, I appreciate the fact that
that's the thing.
he's
Only someone that good
yeah
can look that bad.
yeah.
Like he's so funny.
Like
he
when
was
he
hilarious.
did the dive, when he did the thing off the, like, you know.
Yeah, when he tried the suicide dive and he didn't go far enough, that was funny as shit. Yeah, that got me. I think he's hilarious. I would love to see more of him. And even, at the very least, I'm glad he was in the ring.
Barrett was killing it on commentary during this match.
Yeah.
So,
it was genuinely really, really funny. I like the dynamic between Index. I'm again.
It's weird.
TNA,
it's weird, TNA, but I like it.
Yeah. It's a weird TNA crossover as well, because Dexter Lumis was in TNA with Robert Stone.
Yeah,
and they crossed paths, and it was a similar character that
the thing is, though, I think because they've used Robert Stone mostly as a manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is a part of me that goes, I wonder if they ever are going to actually let him wrestle.
I hope so. Do you know what the original plan was for him?
No, I don't.
He was meant to be Melina's manager, because she was meant to come back to NXT, and then I think she got injured, and then it got called nixed, and now she's NWA.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which would have been cool. But no, I hope we see more of him.
I get why he's a manager, because he has the skills to do that.
Yeah.
But it does, every time I see him in the ring, I just go, why is this guy not wrestling? Like, what? Because like we're just saying, the thing about him, what I love is not only is he so good, he can make himself look bad without hurting himself, but he's also prepared to make himself look bad to make the match good. And
really key as well, he is genuinely funny.
Yeah.
You see a lot of these, and it is like, I see what they're doing. But this was genuinely funny.
Do you know what? The only thing that comes to my mind is, as funny as this in WWE, was when Titus actually stood under the ring and nearly killed us.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Like, honestly, it's one of those things where, like, Robert Stone made it look like it was actually an accident.
Yeah. He is so good. He is so good. And I do hope we get to see a development where he does get to show what he could actually do in a ring.
For sure.
Because I think he's shown off everything else. He's shown the character stuff he could do. He's shown off his talking. I really think that's just.
I think it would be a shame. I think it would be a shame if he is only this comedy manager for his WWE run, because he's shown he can do more than that.
You know what? You should pair him with Drake Maverick.
Oh my god!
Because that would be fun. And again, they've got ties. They both worked with EC3 in TNA. Like, and they were friends.
I want to talk a bit about Index though, because I like the dynamic. It's weird. It's weird and wonderful.
Yep.
I get where they're going, I think. Because I think it is that Indy has the power over Dex. Do you know what I mean? I think.
Okay, you don't think it is actually a straight up a relationship thing? You think it is a power thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where they're going to go with it eventually.
Okay.
But I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that as a bad thing.
It depends how it plays out. I could see it going either way. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this does lead to some more mixed tag stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
Because that could be an interesting. They did the mixed tag tournament a while ago.
I just wondered whether they were playing with the power angle because they did the engagement thing at the end of this match,
which was so corny, and it was great.
It was.
And the way Beth Phoenix was in on it as well.
This is what I was just going to ask you. How does NXT manage to do this, but when it's done on Raw and SmackDown, it doesn't work? And what I mean by that is, how does NXT manage to be corny and for it to be good, but when it's on main roster and it's corny, let's be honest, it's shit.
Because when the main roster's doing it, they're being serious. They're not trying to be corny.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hates that sort of stuff. Unless it's the rare occasions where he finds them really funny, like R-Truth or like whatever the guy called, flippy dude, Reginald, thank you. Yeah, they don't treat it like that. Like the people that are running NXT,
so they're almost too serious for their own good.
Yeah, the people that are running NXT know wrestling is stupid.
Yeah,
and they know part of the stupidity is, guys like Orange Cassidy, or
do you know what the thing
like
about wrestling as well? This is a conversation maybe we'll have at the end, because we're not too bad. We're getting through this show pretty quick. But I would like to have a conversation about why wrestling has something that no other form of entertainment has. So let's hold that question, and we'll talk about it at the end. But what did we get following this match?
So Index won that. They did this cute thing where they both Index put the other two in the silent submission. Like, she did it first, and then he locked eyes with her. It was great. It's so corny. It's great. But then we had another great match. We had the semi-final of the breakout tournament. We had Carmelo Hayes versus Duke Hudson.
Yeah, I don't know either of these people, but this was great.
So I don't know Carmelo Hayes, but Duke Hudson used to be part of the Mighty Don't Kneel with Bronson Reed, with Shane Thorne, and Nick Thingy. So I get the feeling Duke Hudson might actually go back to being in a tag team with Shane Thorne. Ooh. Because they worked really well together when they were in Australia. They didn't get to do anything on Raw. They were there with MVP for 5 minutes, and then it was like, oh, Bobby Lashley sort of thing. So I'd love to see them put back in the tag team, because Shane Thorne is great and he's not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this was a hell of a match. This was fantastic. Actually, sorry. Slightly before that, we had the Dakota Kai Raquel Gonzalez stuff.
Oh yeah.
Which it was
I
fine.
tuned out of that.
I really liked Dakota Kai. I think she was really strong in this. I don't think Raquel was as strong. I don't think she's that great of a talker. I honestly hope Dakota wins.
Okay.
I would like to see her take the title, because she deserves it. I think she's grown so much in the last 2 years. She's been fantastic, especially since she turned heel. Mm-hmm. She's been wonderful. So I'd love to see her take that title and just be a little menace. That would be fantastic. But yeah, the Duke Hudson Carmelo Hayes match was fantastic. They showed off each other so beautifully well. They really played into the big dude versus the small dude. And yeah, both these guys look like they could be absolute stars.
And I mean, that guy fantastic. At the end who came out for the final, the other guy, he was a big guy.
Odyssey Jones is
he looks like he'll eat people alive.
How have like Regal and the rest of the recruitment team gone like, shit, we lost Keith Lee? Oh wait, Odyssey Jones is right there. I don't know if that was his name on the Indies as well.
I have no idea.
But like, he seemed awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I watched his match last week, and he looks fantastic.
Yes.
Very excited for this final. I think it's going to be an incredible match. It's weird it's not on TakeOver.
Yeah, it is.
Because I think this could be a phenomenal match. I would have put it on TakeOver.
Maybe they don't want to give them their like that pressure, because a pay-per-view is pressure, right?
Sure, but these aren't necessarily inexperienced guys.
No, of course.
So I don't know.
But in TV terms, they probably are.
Yeah, maybe, sure, perhaps. Who knows? But yeah, this was an incredible match. This was an incredible match. They both just look like, genuinely, it was one of those where
I didn't know who was going to win.
Yeah, no, exactly. It could have gone either way. I fully, like, I would be fully down for Duke Hudson being in the final or just having that absolute hoss fight.
But do you know what I love about this tournament in general? And NXT's always done this very well. Anytime they've done a tournament, is it doesn't really matter who wins and who loses. It's about making people look good.
Yes. Yeah.
And then seeing who sticks, right?
Yeah,
seeing
exactly.
who the crowd like.
Kind of, yeah, because you will know who the people backstage like, because they're the ones in the latter stages of this. So all the 4 guys in these final 4 are probably going to stick around, or you'll probably see them. These final 3, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they're fantastic. We've already seen a couple of the other guys being like squash matches and stuff like that. But yeah, this was easily the match of the night. I thought it was incredible.
I agree.
I'm curious to see what's going to happen with NXT, because apparently a lot of changes are going to start next week.
Yes.
Which we'll get to towards the end because of reasons. But I really hope these 2 are around for it, because they're both fantastic. And Carmelo Hayes, boy, he could be a star if given the chance, I think.
Yeah.
I think he'd be great. And obviously he's the one that won, and he went on. And then he had that nice encounter with Odyssey Jones at the top. And man, Odyssey Jones is going to win.
He's going to eat him alive.
I think Odyssey Jones is going to win. And it's...
Do you know what?
It's just so good. So good.
I was thinking about this the other day. Some people hate squash matches, but I kind of think to myself sometimes, that's only because they're not used in the right way.
Absolutely.
Like if they're used in the right way, they're great. Sometimes I want to see someone just destroy somebody else.
There's a couple of different, exactly. There's a couple of different ways you use them. You use them to get over how strong someone is, or you use them for shock value, like you do with like Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I like Miro versus Fuego the other day. That was done perfectly, and that was pretty much a squash. Like,
true.
It used right, they are a very handy tool, and they're very useful to immediately like all the stuff they did with Lance Archer early on, sort of thing, and the stuff they did with Lars Sullivan early on, all built perfectly to his characters. But yeah, final match of the night. Another very good match, I thought, actually, was the NXT Tag Team Championship match between MSK and Imperium.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say
enjoyed
it again.
this. I enjoyed this.
Why is this not on TakeOver?
Yeah, I wondered that.
Weird one.
It makes me think that some of these matches at TakeOver are going quite a long time, maybe.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of them are,
because we know that the Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly thing is 2 out of 3 falls. They're probably going to all 3, right?
They're huge blow-off matches. It does also... show that Vince does still have a bit more of a hand on NXT than we'd like, because tag team stuff has taken a dip
for sure
since they've been on TV.
I also wonder whether for Adam Cole, whether TakeOver might be his last match in WWE.
Well, yeah, he doesn't have a contract,
because his contract finishes after that day, from what I understand.
No, his contract's done.
Yeah, didn't he sign like an extension just to finish?
I don't think he actually signed a proper extension. I think he just agreed to do it and get paid as he goes, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that is even an extension.
Because I did watch. So Cultaholic, I don't know who they sourced, but they said something along the lines of Cole can actually, in theory, turn up on AEW next week because his contract expired. There is no non-compete clause.
Yeah, he wasn't fired. He wasn't released. He didn't, agree to being released from his contract.
Which would be wild, right? Like if that does happen, if he has this major match at TakeOver,
imagine. That's what the other thing is. I've been saying, if you haven't seen the last AEW show and the last the show before that we did.
Well, first of all, go and watch our recaps.
That's what I mean. I've been saying they're going so heavy on Punk, it makes me think there's something else. What if Adam Cole is that something else?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last update was that Cole has an offer from both NXT and AEW.
I'm sure he's got offers from everybody.
So I'd love to know what his thinking is, because his wife or partner has said he is happy where he is, which makes me think maybe he will stay. But if things are changing, maybe he wants to go.
That's the thing. She said that a couple of months ago, so he was happy at the time. And I don't doubt that he's probably not unhappy, because he's in a
good position, right?
But a lot of his friends are being fired. A lot
Yeah.
of his pens are being let go. A lot of the changes. That
And
are
also,
happening
he
are
could
working in
re-sign
favor.
and then in 6 months get released. Do you know what I mean? We have seen that
But
happen. So
apparently Vince has like had a sit-down meeting with him directly as well. So
because
that says a
apparently
lot.
Vince is a big fan of him, right? That's what I've heard.
Yeah, a cruiserweight under 6 foot,
Which is
and he's a
unusual
big
for
fan.
Vince. So he's
Like,
obviously
that is a pretty big deal. But then AEW is such an enticing offer because it's not just AEW.
Let's wait
like,
and see on Adam Cole. But I just think it's interesting because that is one of the major matches at TakeOver. And we have another major match at TakeOver, I think, because it's the return of Samoa Joe to in-ring action.
So
and that's kind of plays on what we have next in NXT this week, right?
Yeah, so before we get to that, we actually need to talk about the tag team match because we didn't actually talk about the tag team match really.
True.
Very good match.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's kind of what I expect from these two teams at this point, though.
Yeah,
because MSK are great. They've always been great. And then you've got Imperium who just do their job, right? And they do it very effectively.
It's mad. I think the ending was a little bit cheap. I think Walter coming out was a bit stupid. It was a bit against the way he does what he does. It also plays into the he's made it very clear if they don't win these tag titles, there will be repercussions.
Yeah.
So him coming out to try and make sure they win him and then it backfiring is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, and also the thing is, it was also done as a kind of slight furthering of the Walter storyline for Sunday as well, because he's got his title match, right?
Yes.
So therefore, because I actually think Walter's going to lose on
I think he could. I think he could as well.
Because I wonder whether they're going to try and somehow persuade him to come to America again. Because the big report about Walter is that he never wants to come to America.
No, he wants to stay in Europe. Which is probably the only reason that NXT UK is still a thing.
True. Because they're not going to let Walter go. I don't see that happening.
It's such a shame that the pandemic hit just as Triple H was about to unveil his master plan of having NXT around the world.
Yeah, I know.
Because that would have been huge. That would have been so cool.
Yeah, and also NXT UK would work if people watched it. That's the thing, is like,
well, that's also kind of the thing, is it was for its purpose, it was working because NXT UK, NXT India,
it was
NXT
a feeding
Japan,
ground, right?
Exactly, they were all going to be smaller developmental style things, and they still are. Well, UK anyway, they don't have any idea what else, but it still is. That's why Kairi Sane still works for WWE, but she's in Japan.
Yeah.
Like that was the point. She was meant to head up that side of stuff, and then like they were going to get. I think there was talk of Carly potentially being on
the Indian,
because he is like Hulk Hogan over there.
Yeah, I was going to say he's massive, right?
Popular.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's a shame. It is a shame. But hey ho, you know. But yeah, this tag match for me was a good match, and I agree that the ending was a little bit weird. But I also understand why the ending was what it was.
Yeah, it's a tough one as well because they got to fit so much in because tag teams haven't been featured a lot on NXT.
No.
Since really that they went on TV and Vince had a bit more of a hand in what's going on because Vince doesn't like tag teams because he's a moron.
I mean, he is, because some of his most successful matches ever are tag team matches. So what
I like one of the best matches.
It's like a switch went in his head one day. Oh yeah, we're just not going to bother anymore.
It's really weird. I like one of the best matches in the last 5 years.
Do you know what the weird thing is though? As a little quick aside, I would actually say the real level of tag team matches we need are somewhere between what WWE does and what AEW does. Because I feel like AEW does too many tag team matches.
Potentially, yeah, but they're also building something with that. They are building to trios titles
for sure.
Probably. And if NXT do mixed titles, that would be cool.
That would be really cool. No, I don't think they are.
I think it's just for storyline purposes. You'll find there be a match.
So let's move on to really the biggest story in NXT right now.
Well, we did have a bit. I just before that we had the Pete Dunne bit.
Did we? Oh,
And
did
I
I miss
really
that?
liked it.
What happened?
Pete Dunne sat there with Ridge Holland, and they're just being all like, all Brummy and all Yorkie,
Okay.
and chatting shit about Thatcher and Ciampa, and I love it. I thought it was great. It was
I mean,
awesome.
I love anything Pete Dunne does, to be fair. So,
Absolutely.
so
But yeah, that was great. That was a good little promo. It was a good little proper British like sort of thing.
yeah. It's
but
nice when
yes.
they actually when they let British people be British. It's nice.
Yeah. And then we had Samoa Joe coming down to the ring and doing what Samoa does. Well, I'll say what he does best. He does everything the best, really.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. He cut a great little promo.
Yeah.
And then Kross came out, talked back, it was good. But the key thing here is that they had security. Security couldn't fucking stop them. They just beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
The key, you mentioned on Karrion Kross said something about the future of NXT.
So Karrion Kross basically said, "This isn't about you, Joe. It isn't about me. It's about the future of this brand." Is essentially what he said, which I think was quite telling.
Never mind. I'll do it in a minute. So they're clearly alluding to big things coming, and I think even more so, what alludes to that is that they wrecked the stadium or the arena.
Yeah, they literally destroyed the place.
They broke through so many
Samoa Joe nearly fell over.
Right? Yeah, it was a fight. It was a fight, but I love when stuff like that happens because it feels real. When it's all perfectly choreographed, it feels it's
kind of like when you get a storyline between two wrestlers that don't really like each other, and they actually use that to further the storyline.
So that was pretty much the crux of that. They knock each other out by going through another barrier. And that's it. That's
and we both said that we don't know who's going to win this match.
I honestly don't. But what if Big E cashes in?
Oh my god! Don't even.
Because I mean, it would be a big old swerve.
It would be a big old swerve. But what does it do for Big E?
It makes him the head of a brand. It makes him
true. But do they care about NXT enough for that to be meaningful to him?
If they're gonna make the changes they're talking about changing, or the production changes and stuff like that, I sure hope so, because that's a lot of money it takes to do that sort of stuff.
True.
Even if it's scaling down a bit, it's still a lot of money to move all that.
Well, the rumor is they're going to go to. So let's talk a little bit about the changes for NXT, because we've run through this week's episode now. Very good episode.
Yeah. I thought it was a great go home episode. I thought they did a very good job.
Very good job. Very good final segment. Sometimes these kind of talky, let's have a little fight segments suck ass.
This
one was pretty good.
Like I say, it was only Raquel that I thought was lacking a bit. But still very interesting. All the stuff.
So very good episode overall. Put it this way, it made me more excited for the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Exactly the point.
But let's talk about, first of all, what might be in the future of NXT, because we hear that big changes are coming next week. For those who haven't heard, it sounds like they're going back to pre-taped episodes, maybe.
For the next 3 weeks, at the very least.
Yeah.
But I think they should anyway, because pre-tape's better.
And there's also a logo change apparently going to happen.
Apparently, there's a lot of change. The arena is going to change, the logo is going to change, the lights are going to change, the whole shebang.
And I was saying to you, Luke, that I understand the kind of trepidation around these changes to NXT, because people do like what NXT is. I'm not convinced that these changes are going to be bad.
Not necessarily, no. I don't think people are too negative on the fact that NXT does need to change, because it is about time that NXT got a bit of a revamp
about the change
again.
That might be happening, right?
But it's less about the change. It's more the way it was phrased by certain people high up in WWE where they
Vince.
said no midget, where they said no midgets and no one over 30 because they want to take it back to being a proper developmental brand. Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, that's what NXT always was.
I mean, there is also an argument that it was not, aside from the no midgets thing, it was potentially better when they did only have the younger
when they had 1 hour.
People. That's true.
Not necessarily younger people, because you had like Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe and people like that
true.
Still moved up and did incredible things. So I think there's still a place for that.
There has to be a scope for some older guys, right?
Yeah, because younger guys fighting younger guys.
Well, because you're not going to learn. Well, we were actually having this conversation the other day about an age of wrestlers and how long can they go. And we were having it around CM Punk because he's obviously 42, and you were very much of the mind of like, how long is he going to go at 42, and how long can you really go? And then I found out that Bobby Lashley's 45 years old. And it's like, shit, like wrestling is different these days.
Yeah, like a lot of it depends on your wrestling start. Like I fully expect Randy Orton's going to go until he's like 50. But someone like
of course
I was going to say AJ Styles, but he's still doing it. But then he's had to adapt. He's not as high flying as he used to be.
No, but also I quite like when wrestlers adapt, right? But my point is, the reason I bring up the point is 30 years old, or even I would say up to 35, isn't actually old for a wrestler these days.
No, I mean, mid-30s is when you kind of hit your jam with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I would say, if anything, mid-30s is where you start to hit your prime. Like, if you look at most wrestlers, their prime is
around 32.
Their prime is kind of mid to late 30s is the prime run.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, you look at like The Rock was literally in WWE for 5 years.
Yeah.
Stone Cold was 5-6 years, something like that. Like, people being in WWE for like 10 years is.
I think that this is the thing. I think that wrestling is different, and I think as fans we maybe haven't realized it as much because we're so ingrained in the product.
I think a lot of the problem as well is a lot of the reason why NXT got so stacked and started to become this like super indie is the over reliance on these same people on the main roster. If you shook things up and moved people aside and just let people run out their contracts when you don't have something to do with them, you could bring the next rock up.
I also think
Adam Cole's and stuff like that.
Let's be very clear. This is the one thing that does worry me about these changes to NXT, because we've heard it's going to go back to more of a developmental thing, which is what it was always intended to be. I understand that.
Yeah,
that's not bad necessarily. But I do always think in my head, even now, if they actually treated it like a third brand and actually gave it the proper treatment of, we're not going to take people from this show for our 2 bigger shows. We're not going to, like, if they actually treated it with the same respect as the other 2 shows, it could arguably be much bigger.
But when they did, when it was just treated as a developmental brand, it was the best promotion in the world.
True, very true. But I also think that part of that is because they kind of treated it bigger, but they treated it bigger with this kind of...
They had a lot more freedom.
Little wink, right? Where it was like, oh yeah, we're going to treat you bigger, but you're still second to everything else.
It's kind of a shame that people realized how good NXT was, because when it started getting more eyes on it, it really, what should have happened is they should have just shuffled the main roster.
Yeah.
The main roster should have been shuffled around. If they were going to get rid of people, they should have got rid of people, made it one brand, because it would just make their division stronger, more interesting, and then you'd have a much bigger rotation. And like I said, if you haven't got plans for someone, let their contract run out. People are fine with that. That's cool. People don't want to be sat around doing nothing. People want to be wrestling. And if it is literally a case is like you can get someone in for a storyline, Like they were going to do with the Bucks. They had to deal with the Bucks where it was literally a 6-month thing.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to stay beyond that, they could. But there is too much of the hoarding talent thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you've got a
and the funny thing
right?
is, I want to recommend an interview here. People would have heard of Chris Van Vliet. Great interviewer of wrestlers. He did an interview a little while ago with Buddy Murphy.
Yes.
Where Murphy talks about how he believes that right now that potentially WWE are flooding the market of free agents so that each individual person has slightly less impact because there are so many people available.
Sure. I do.
And I kind of understand what he means. Like if there are 10 people that are all able to come to different promotions on the same day and and they're all kind of fighting for the spotlight.
But that's the ignorance of WWE because one, it's not a bad thing.
No
one's going to be like, holy shit, this guy turned up here, and then this guy turned up here.
Yeah.
What they also don't realize is all these smaller promotions fucking talk to each other.
Yeah.
They collaborate. Ring of Honor helped produce the first All In.
Yeah.
Like it's
and it's also one of those things where it's like, well, I do actually agree with the concept of what Buddy Murphy was saying about how
I don't think WWE are that smart. I don't think that's what they're trying to do at all.
No, but I do agree with his concept that having more people on the market potentially lessens the impact of those people because there are so many people going to so many places. And Tyler Breeze said a similar thing where he said that right now he wouldn't go to AEW because people from WWE turning up on AEW is becoming a common thing.
Yeah, and like he's super real. I love that interview with Breeze. He's super realistic because he knows he's not an attraction guy. He's a very, very useful, very handy person to have because of the training he does and because of his experience. But he's not someone people are like, holy shit, he actually turned up, sort of thing. Like
so for him, it needs to be like on his own later down the line when he has more. Yeah, but he very much sort of said that he's not saying never, but right now he wouldn't because
it sounds like he's going to mostly be a trainer and then he'll pop up for interesting bits every now and again, which I love.
Put it this way, if he pops up somewhere, I wouldn't be surprised if it's AEW.
Impact.
You think Impact? Okay,
I think Impact would suit him.
We will see that, I
honestly think he'd just be one of those guys that just pops up. Kind of like Kyle Cardona's doing that, where he just pops up a bit of everywhere. I honestly think that just
so we don't often do this, but as we got through this episode pretty quick today, I think we should have a little discussion around that question I asked earlier about what is it that wrestling has that no other form of entertainment has, because it feels to me every time I watch wrestling like there is something, and I'll explain what I think it is and then you can see if you agree. For me, I think what wrestling has compared to any other TV product, movie, anything like that is kind of this massive inside joke that even the consumers are in on, right? And it's kind of like everyone knows how silly it is, but once you accept how silly it is, that's kind of why it's so good. I think what it gives to people is, I've said it before, but I think of it much like a soap opera that is also appealing to sports fans, right? Because it's something that if I've said to many people, I've said to my girlfriend before, I've said to lots of people that I guarantee you, if I made you watch wrestling for 3 weeks, on the 4th week, you'd want to watch it again. Because there'll be something about it. There'll be something about it that you want to continue watching, whether that be one storyline, whether it be whatever it might be.
Yeah, it could just be the spectacle of it. Like I've been there, like watching. I remember I was watching clips of Cesaro a while back, Like he did a big swing on, I think it was like Mark Henry or someone like that. And my missus just sat there like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, bro, he's sick. I don't think you're wrong. I think a better analogy for it is that it's like Marvel but comic books.
Okay, interesting.
Because it is such a weird thing, because in no other TV show do you have so many different angles and so many different storylines to follow. Each, you've got WWE and then you've got everyone else, sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's like WWE or Marvel and everything else is DC. You've got so many different characters and different storylines going on. It's almost like different comic book series is underneath an umbrella. And then very, very occasionally, we don't really see it anymore. The last time I think we actually saw it was Main Event Mafia in TNA, where they did a proper, this is everybody. It's the entire
like
company.
The whole show is this angle.
I thought it was actually pretty cool. I thought that was cool. I thought it was really cool.
I mean, we're not seeing that in WWE, but there is an element of that in Impact right now with the elite stuff.
So that's a crossover event.
Yeah.
So wrestling is. This is why I thought it was ironic that WWE got into making comic books for a little bit. I was like, I can kind of see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if you can get someone that can write a very good story in a comic book, you can translate that very well, or take those skills very well over into writing the main show, because it is like a huge comic book.
Very similar,
universe.
Right? Yeah.
Like each one of these storylines is following a different kind of arc, but series.
It's something that I can never quite put my finger on, but it's just that every single time I watch wrestling, it has something that nothing else has. Like, I'm a football
Nothing
fan.
has that mix of just nonsense.
It's like I'm a football fan and I watch football and I enjoy football, and I enjoy being in the crowd at a football match from time to time. But it's not the same. Like,
well, put it like this: where else do you go from having a match like Moxley versus Nick Gage, where they're cutting each other's faces off, and then you cut to a backstage promo with Danhausen and Orange Cassidy?
True.
Like, there is nothing else.
And where else? And where else in what other media would Orange Cassidy as a character work? Let's be real.
Comic books.
Yeah,
comic books is literally the only other one. Like, you could do it in a TV series, but it would have to revolve around him specifically. But it's wrestling is one of the only places where you can do that, and it makes sense. The only other place I think is in an umbrella of like Marvel and then their individual comic books.
For sure.
And then it just tells a bigger story.
So that's kind of the thing for me, is like every time I watch wrestling, and the thing about wrestling as well is every wrestling product has a slightly different thing. Like WWE is very spectacle, and I do still believe that in the industry there's nothing quite like WrestleMania. Like, at the end of the day,
no.
At the end of the day, they do pull their finger out for WrestleMania.
If I had one wish, it would be that WWE work with other people, and WrestleMania is a week thing,
and is actually WrestleMania.
Right? Yeah, it's literally everybody comes together, and you have this huge event where just everything is on the line. It's the combination of every storyline. There's crossovers. There's all this. And it's just done on this massive.
I'd love that one
stage.
day. I'd love that.
It would be sick. It feels like that's what AEW and everybody else
is kind of doing, right? Yeah.
And it would have been what WWE were working towards if their plan for world domination actually worked.
Yeah.
But the pandemic,
for sure.
But next to that, unfortunately.
For sure. But it's interesting because each of these companies has their own sort of spice. Like, I've heard a lot of people say that the reason AEW works is because they're appealing to people who still love wrestling, but fell out of it because WWE weren't giving them a product that they could connect with anymore.
AEW works because I don't think it's recapturing that WCW crowd. I think it's more recapturing that ECW crowd.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Which NXT did a lot of, but then
It's
people put their
to
fingers in
me,
it.
to me, AEW is essentially capturing people who were fans of either ECW or WWE. But in the WWE case,
Yeah,
it
before
would
it hit that.
be people who were fans before like 2004. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember I introduced AEW to a friend a little while back. I was like, oh, did you know? Because I was like, oh, I know you're an old wrestling fan. Did you hear about this new wrestling company, AEW? And he was like, oh, no, tell me a bit about it. I was like, and this was before they had their first world title match. And I was like, oh, Chris Jericho is fighting a young wrestler for their world title belt. And he was like, really, Chris Jericho? I was like, yeah. I was like, they're and he was like, cool. And he literally then went and bought the pay-per-view. And you know, it's like, but that's all it takes is something to get someone in. I think that's what AEW's done really well. But wrestling in general, like, I don't think there's any one form of media, even video games, that I'd recommend more to people, because I think wrestling does have something for everybody. Like, I genuinely think it does.
I think that's difficult because video games have such a breadth of different things they can do and they can try. Whereas
true,
but
not everyone can play video games, right?
Sure.
Whereas everybody to some degree can engage with wrestling.
Sure. But I think there is it's a weird one because it comes in waves.
Of course.
Like there'll be a lot. Yeah, it tends to be Royal Rumble sort of.
My barometer for it is my parents, right? Because I often watch the wrestling with my parents as well. They're not actually wrestling fans in that sense. Like, they'd never put it on themselves. But I'm sat there watching it. They're into the stories. They know who the characters are. You know, like, my dad is a big Goldberg fan. He thinks Goldberg's great because he saw Goldberg spear Brock Lesnar out of his boots a few years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Imagine if that was his last match.
Yeah.
That would have been sick. That would have been so good. Because I actually watched that again yesterday, I think it was. So I watched the promo before it as well. Yeah, like the promo got me. I was like, oh man, I'm feeling this is great. So I watched the match.
Do you know what I loved about that match is that it was a shock because no one expected it. Everybody thought Lesnar was going to kill him,
and like I said, that should have been it. That should be him riding off into the sunset. Then that should have been him done. I think.
But this is my point. So my parents are my barometer because it's like, to me, it's like, if they can find something they enjoy in it, even though it isn't a program they'd put on themselves. That must mean there's something there for everybody.
Did they watch wrestling when it was super popular?
So they used to watch it back obviously in Britain. We had people like Giant Haystacks and Big Daddy, like really back in the day, like the 80s, the 70s. So
it was huge back then.
So they did watch it back then, especially in the UK. It was massive in the UK back then. But they were never. They've become fans of it more over the last few years, I'd say, because I'm always watching it. So I think they understand more what's going on.
Sure.
Whereas back in the day, it was very much like my brothers did watch wrestling, but they'd often watch it at their friend's house or whatever. So my parents would see it maybe once in a blue moon, whereas now they see it every week. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that when you see it every week, it's like, okay, I get what's going on. I know who these people are.
Yeah.
And my mum will be like, my mum hates Roman Reigns now. She used to love Roman Reigns. Absolutely hates him now.
Good. You should. You absolutely should.
That's what I say to her. I say, you're meant to, man. That's a good thing. They're doing their job.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know, there's this. I don't know. I don't want to call it secret sauce, but it is almost like a secret sauce with wrestling, where it has this. I think it just has this mix of things, like you said, Luke, where you don't find this mix of things anywhere else.
You don't. It's got the sport element of like your MMA, your boxing, and stuff like that. Because these people,
let's be real. Let's pay let's pay these wrestlers some respect, because they get a lot of shit from people who don't understand what wrestling is, I think.
Oh, I would love to see so many of these people just take a chop. Pow.
These people are real athletes. The only thing about wrestling is the outcomes are predetermined. That's
and
it.
it's they're trained in a way where it looks like they're trying to beat the shit out of each other, but they're not. They're very safe. I saw a great video on, I can't remember if it was Instagram or Twitter, but it's this young woman just lying down, and there's this big, heavy dude just leg drops her.
Oh wow.
And she's just there like, oh wow. And she just gets up like it's nothing, because that's how they're trained. They're trained to not actually hurt people.
They're trained very safely, but some of the stuff they do still hurts, right? It's just that what hurts and who it hurts isn't necessarily who it looks like.
You listen to anyone who talks about when they first started training, and even just running into the ropes.
Yeah,
that shit hurts.
Yeah.
Like that is not a comfortable thing to do, and like it's not a mattress you're landing on. It's wood with a bit of canvas.
I mean, this is why. Let's be real. Lots of wrestlers have had drug issues and painkiller issues.
Yeah, they get addicted to painkillers over the years and stuff like that. Yeah,
because they fucking hurt. They do that. They're bumping their heads and backs and shit on this
now.
mat,
Obviously, it is a bit different now because most people do play safer.
Yeah,
most people like make it look like it hurts, but it does. Just
other than when James Ellsworth nearly gets himself killed against AJ Styles that time.
Yes, but that is an instinct thing, because when you're in that situation, instinctively you tuck your head. But AJ's
that was so close to going wrong.
I mean, like even people like Samoa Joe and Walter and stuff like that.
I'll tell you what.
Telling me that shit don't hurt.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm sorry, but I've seen Walter chop people, and it looks like his hand has gone through their chest. Like,
do you remember when he slapped Sabre Jr. and just folded him in half?
Yeah. So
it's got the athletic acumen. It's got the spectacle of people being able to do unbelievable things that back in the day you'd see in a circus or at the Olympics.
Well, that's where wrestling comes from, right?
Yes. So. Married with story and character work and stuff like that. It's a great. That's why you see a lot of wrestlers move into acting and stuff like that.
And I also, I said it earlier as a bit of a joke about it being an inside joke that everybody's in on, but I do think that's part of it. I think that it's everybody's in on it. And once you come to understand it, I think you appreciate it more.
It was part of the, again, go watch. I highly recommend the Tyler Breeze interview with Chris Van Vliet. But it's part of the thing he said about his training school is that you need to embrace it. If you do not embrace how stupid and how silly wrestling is, you're not gonna get into it.
No,
either from like a viewer side or a
wrestler,
or actually the wrestling side. And acting is the same.
Acting
is very much the same. If you don't get into how stupid what you're actually doing is, you're never going to make it. You're never going to be able to do that.
So what I recommend to people, if you're thinking about watching wrestling, just do it, but don't do it once. Do it for a couple of weeks, because
it's like a TV show. You got to try a bit more than one episode.
Because not every episode's good. Let's be very clear.
What you should do is start with a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Because that tends to be the blow off. That tends to be when you're getting,
and those are wrestling at their best usually, right?
You'd hope so, yeah. And that's when you get these hype packages that tell you everything you need to know before going into the blow-off match.
What you should maybe start with, let's be real. What you should maybe start with is our content, but then AEW Rampage this Friday, because the biggest thing potentially for years might be happening.
Absolutely, but don't skip over Dynamite either.
That's true.
I wouldn't skip over Dynamite. We could see some interesting stuff before that as well.
So there's a lot of fun wrestling around over this next week or so. Some good pay-per-views. Check them out. And if you're not going to check them out and you just want to hear the results and hear our thoughts, please subscribe here and stick with us, because we will have a lot of videos next week. The plan is that you will get your AEW recap on Monday next week instead of Wednesday. and then you'll have a SummerSlam review on Tuesday, and then you'll have an NXT Takeover review on Wednesday, and then your NXT weekly recap on Thursday. So 4 videos next week. And then the following week, we will have All Out from AEW as well.
Yeah, a lot going on at once.
So a lot for us to do, but we're enjoying it, I think. And hopefully you're enjoying it as well. As I said, please subscribe to the channel if you are. Leave a like on the video, leave a comment. As always, let us know what we can improve because we're still pretty new to this. We only made our return a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're going to be here for quite a while. So please stick with us and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.